Hi, ladies. Welcome to another episode of the Femalepreneur Coach podcast. I am your host, Rebecca Barr, and I am super excited today. I am joined by Rhian O'Leary, who is a marketing agency owner, entrepreneur, and energy healer. And she is going to be bringing something to the table today to talk about that I am super excited to delve into because it's something that is even beyond my realm of expertise. And I claim to be able to do most things, but this is absolutely not my zone of genius. So I'm really excited for this. So welcome, Rhian. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much. No, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited to kind of like share my knowledge and hopefully help some people too.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, Rhian uses, well, actually, I'm not going to say it because I'm not very good with these things, but my interpretation is this is more with like the spiritual, the quantum physics, energy, manifestation, all the things, which I haven't spoken about in a while, actually, on this podcast. I've spoken very much about the mind body connection and about health, there's wellness, and all of these things. So I'm super excited to get back on the woo woo side. And this is even next level for me because the modalities and stuff that you use are ones that even I'm not familiar about. So maybe you can go into a little bit more detail about the kind of work that you do with your clients and how you help them, how that then translates to business success for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have always been brought up from like a very, very young age, with kind of an alternative view of the world. Of my mum was very much into energy work. I know the story started for her where, in fact, there are so many stories I could tell you about my mother. She's just the most incredible human ever. But just to kind of get you in the frame of mind of how I grew up, because it is so different to a lot of other people. She was diagnosed with arthritis for life at the age of 27 when she completed a marathon. And they were like, there's no way out of it. It's for life. You're
Is what
not
it
going to
is.
get away from it.
Mm.
And then she was like, no, I'm not having this. And just her persistence and her belief, within 6 months, she went back and they were like, oh, there must have been a mistake because this was a lifelong diagnosis. You don't actually have arthritis. And she's like, no, it was her kind of dedication and persistence and open-mindedness to trying new things. And then that's happened multiple times. Like just 6 months ago, she was told she had type 1 diabetes at like 65. Um, and she was like, no, I'm not having this.
She sounds like my kind of woman.
And then again, her exploration into, I did some energy healing work on her. She also explored something called German New Medicine, and she's just very open and she doesn't take things conventionally. So then when I was growing up as a child, it wasn't like you go to the doctors. It's like, okay, well, let's try and see what we can find.
Like
Maybe let's take you,
homeopathic remedies.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and more like holistic things. And then that kind of went to Reiki and then EFT. So I've always had a very good understanding of the energy world and that essentially that life is an inside job. So you approach problems from the inside out rather than saying like, oh, this person's an issue. It's no, this person is bringing up something within me.
yeah,
And when I clear up that thing in me, the issue is either so easy to overcome or it just disappears.
yes.
And I genuinely cannot think of a situation where that has not been the case. Um,
Yeah, I love that. So you've obviously had a very nurturing environment in childhood, which is music to my ears, obviously as a mother, because that's what I aspire to do as, as a mother, essentially, is just nurture my children into whatever craziness they want to evolve
yeah.
into, because some of the things that they bring to the table are quite interesting. I've got like YouTubers in the making and all the things. Um, but I love that you were obviously nurtured from a child to just explore the realms of what is possible. So would you
Mm,
so for people that aren't like from the spiritual community,
yeah.
what kind of modalities do you use? But would you say that this falls under the realm of like quantum physics? Like how does it like um energetics? Like what
Yeah.
kind of, relate to the work that you do?
So I have trained under a form of healing called Pranic healing, and it was created or modern day created by Grandmaster Chokosui, and he is from the Philippines, but it is rooted in kind of like Tibetan Buddhism. And often these practices would be taught in the temples and then kind of like passed down to disciples, but kind of kept within the temples. However, this is a form that has now been like taught to the world, if that makes sense. So the thing I can describe it as most similar to is Reiki, but it's also so different from Reiki. But just the kind of average person that might know Reiki, that's the closest thing they can kind of
Connected
associate with
to.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Reiki's
Um,
always like the gateway drug, isn't it, to
yeah.
energy healing?
Yeah. I mean, I personally have never experienced it, apart from my mum, who when I was sick would put her hand above my tummy and then I'd feel better. I've never like gone to a Reiki healer or anything like that, but that's what I know is the closest association.
Yeah, I love it. So it's obviously evolved quite organically, and then you've obviously like leaned into it. Is there any like pivotal moment where you just like, yeah, this is really something, and I need to start mastering this as a modality?
Absolutely. So I first got into pranic healing through meditation. And I was going through I just set up my business. So we said before about the marketing agency. I set up my marketing agency just before COVID, and I had my first contract with a private jet company. And within a week from me leaving my business, the entire airline industry had shut down because of COVID.
Yes.
The borders had closed, people weren't flying, and obviously I got commission off the private jets that people booked. So when people weren't flying cross borders and people were physically stuck in their houses, um, I was like, well, this is my job that I'm
Thanks,
doing.
universe, for that little curveball.
So there was a lot of kind of like fear and it brings up all the emotions. And through that, I started doing more and more meditation because the world was at a standstill. Like, what else could we do? And I was doing this meditation and I was really focusing on cleansing like your basic chakra, who it's very similar to like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Mhm.
Um, but like safety and security is mainly stored in your basic chakra. And when I was
Where is that
doing the
located? Is that in your
yeah,
tummy back?
like no, like kind of like the bottom of your spine, so the
Oh, so like where
tailbone.
your coccyx is,
Yeah,
that bit, yeah, your tailbone, whatever.
yeah,
Yeah, not a doctor, obviously. Do you
yeah.
ever watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Is it Brooklyn Nine-Nine on Netflix?
No.
Oh, it's a really funny show, and at the end, it's like not a doctor, and I'm like, that's me, not a doctor.
No, I am not very good at Netflix. I'm a very kind of energetic person, and to sit down and watch Netflix shows, my brain just can't compute.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. I
I
don't sit down
wish
and
I
watch
could.
TV. I do it while I'm like watching TV while I'm making dinner and stuff. I'm like
Yeah.
I need to watch it in motion.
No, absolutely. So I was going back, I was cleansing my basic chakra and I was meditating more. And then within a week, I think it was like a week and a half, I literally had like no leads, nothing for my business. And all of a sudden, meditating, cleansing the basic, focusing on because the basics all around action as well, like taking the action that if you have
Inspired action.
procrastination, not really, because inspiration kind of comes from other chakras, but actually taking that step, you can have inspiration and not do anything with it.
Mhm.
So if you're taking the action, then it's a very basic grounding energy. So working on that, taking action every day, doing the little bits, within a week, I'd had my most successful month. And I literally went from nothing. And I think as well, it was a very, very quiet period. Like I remember thinking like this is going to be bad because when I was in the industry at my previous job, this was the quietest month we had.
Yeah.
Within a week, I had a friend message me to say, we want you to run our entire campaign. It was a political campaign. Another friend messaged me saying, I heard about you from Carol, who was a mutual friend. I want you to run all of this for me. I had a friend contact me from the years ago when I used to live in Malta, say, I see you're an advertising specialist. Will you help me with my business in Dubai?
Oh my
And
God.
all
International
of these
contacts as
things
well. I'm loving it.
came out of the woodwork and nothing changed apart from my energy. Like they were always there, but I
That's so
was just
interesting.
closed off to it.
And genuinely, this is why I was like, I'm so excited to speak to you because it fascinates me, the world of energetics. Because from a logical point of view, I understand the principles of energy in the sense that you can feel certain emotions, certain energies. Obviously, you can feel them in your body, but even like if you walk in a room and things are tense, and I can absolutely understand all of these things. And I've definitely manifested opportunities where I've just had that belief that something is going to happen, like so it's happened. um, but the stuff that you're talking about is like the next level, isn't it, of that? Just like working on your own personal energy and how you can unlock all of this potential that is just circling you literally at any
Yeah,
point, isn't it? All of those people were already within your network, already within your energy field. In theory, they could have come forward at any point, but just you doing that intentional work and clearing to allow things to move has brought it in it like quickly, which I just absolutely love. So what can you kind of put that to? Is that, have I articulated that in the right way? Does that
I
make
mean,
sense?
the energetic world is huge, and it would be so hard to like, obviously there's a lot of things you've just said there, and it would be so hard to kind of like explain those, because you need kind of a basic level of understanding and then it can build on that. um Let me think about how I can kind of condense this
Mm. So if
down.
I was somebody that's maybe got a bit of an awareness of
Yeah,
manifestation, and I've read the law of attraction, like I've read The Secret, like I've done the
yeah.
things, what what is it, that kind of practice that you do that really kind of amplifies that or just builds
Okay.
on that concept?
Okay. So if we try a little experiment and then hopefully that can kind of like make it more real.
Yeah.
Now, I love this experiment, but it comes with a preface that not everyone has the same sensitivity to energy. So whilst most people can feel this, obviously there are some people that just have like big mental blocks or for whatever reason aren't as sensitive to energy and can't feel it yet. But if you hold your hand out in front of you,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I'm super excited. Had my
and
nails done
yeah,
specifically for this exercise, obviously.
perfect. Hold your hand out in front of you and hold both hands. And I just want you to take a note of the weight and like how does it feel? Like nothing much there, whatever.
Yeah, no, yeah, super light.
Cool. So I want you to look at your left hand and I want you to look at it and I want you to say the word apple
In my head or out loud?
out loud.
Apple.
And then I want you to say it again 3 more times while staring at your hand.
Apple, apple, apple.
And I want you to just take note of your hand. How does it feel? Can you feel anything there?
Yeah, a little bit. That's funny. When I said apple, it kind of like my hand went down a little like that.
Yeah.
Like I don't, it's obviously because like I'm putting intention into that, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take your other hand
Hmm.
and I want you to go over the top of it. And I want you to,
Oh,
oh,
over the top of the apple.
over the top. And then I want you to feel if you can feel anything. So if you're on YouTube, you can see this.
Yes.
You feel something.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And now I want you to take both hands and go like that.
That's so funny. It feels like static energy. Like when you get static electricity almost, not energy, electricity.
Yeah. And then put your hand back out. And then how does it feel now? Is it gone?
Actually feels fuzzy. It feels fuzzy on
Yeah.
this one. Is that actually what's meant to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, what we've just done, if we've
That's
created a thought
crazy.
form in
Yeah,
your hand.
yeah. Like
So
it actually feels like I've got pins and needles in my hands. Like
yeah,
that's so funny.
yeah. So essentially, every time we have a thought, that thought has mass, that thought has weight, that thought
Yeah.
exists.
Mm,
And if you look back, psychology is actually the study of the soul. When you go back to like the original origins, it's not the study of the mind.
yeah.
So where psychology fails is that it tries to study the mind in itself.
Yeah.
And I won't get in trouble for saying this because a lot of different modalities have this concept, but what if our brain is a receiver
Yeah.
rather than something that actually controls us? What if it's just receiving information? And
Oh,
these thought forms that we're
yeah.
holding that sit in our aura, what if that is more of the mind? And then our brain just categorizes the library.
Yeah.
So when people talk about like electrical impulses, it is kind of like we've got all of these thought forms from the
Sorry, my
80,000
face,
years.
my pen just moved.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Honestly, like every time hello? Like, hello? Honestly, I'm convinced like, my house is just very interesting. Like I
Oh,
got it from an old lady. And I'm like, she's still here. Is she not happy? And this has happened a few times where I've been on calls. I'm not even joking. This is a complete side note, which you can always
yeah.
expect with my podcast episodes. But I've been on calls like this with spiritual healers, and they've either said, "Oh, there's somebody standing behind you," or something like, "There's an angel," and my desk has moved. And like, I'm not even joking, but my pen just moved. I'm like, sorry. So I'm totally here for what you were saying, but also slightly freaking out at the same time. That's really bizarre. Like, but I think I'm quite intuitive though. As you said,
I,
like it depends on your sensitivity with energy. But sorry, please complete your thought.
it's okay. And don't worry about these things. Like, um, a big thing about spirituality is you have to have a lot of discernment in this area because realistically, no, apart from people who are clairvoyant and can see energy and are highly advanced and in tuned clairvoyance, there is a lot of misconceptions, a lot of things that are said, which may or not be the most accurate. Like my teacher always says, we were given a brain for a reason. Don't follow blind devotion because you don't know where that person's got their beliefs from. Um, there's if it's something that you physically are not seeing or not understanding, then err on the side of caution, I think is probably.
Yes.
But sorry, going back to all of the thoughts that sit in our aura. So we've just demonstrated that a thought has weight, it has mass, it is a thing.
Yeah.
So if we have 20 to 80,000 of these thoughts a day that are sitting through in our auras,
Mhm.
and if we think of the aura as the energy field around us, we are literally seeing the world through our thoughts. Like
Yeah.
literally.
Oh, absolutely. Even from like
Yeah.
an NLP perspective, our reticular activating system. So I'm always interested because there is so much crossover, I think, in modern
Absolutely.
neuroscience and the spiritual aspect and energy, because like even just we would filter information differently based on our bias and our beliefs.
Yeah.
So 100%, everything you're saying, I'm like, yeah, that makes complete sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So literally, we're
Yes.
seeing the world based on our thoughts.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there is a lot of crossover. And
Does it matter
I
if we
heard,
verbalize it? I was just had a quick caveat on that. Does it matter if the thoughts that we have that are in our aura and circulating us, does it matter if we verbalize it or whether we're internalizing it? Does it have any impact or it's all the same?
it so the more attention you put on a thought, the denser it becomes. And the denser it becomes, the more likely it is to manifest in our physical reality. So, and that goes for good as well as bad. And you mentioned the secret and the law of attraction. And when you think of these thought forms that sit in our aura, we may have a thought form. It's like, I really want a new car. But then we may also have all of these different thought forms about the reasons you can't have a new car. And one is going to cancel out the other. And that's the thing that kind of like the secret and the law of attraction, they tend not to cover. And
Yeah.
again, in your work, it's like limiting beliefs,
Mm.
but very real, very physical things.
Yeah.
Um,
Because I guess as well, when you talk about the density element, it's like what is the most reinforced belief, I guess wins. It's almost like
yeah,
survival of the fittest, isn't it? If you have for like 20, 30, 40 years been thinking, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, just because you've now suddenly decided to do some personal development work and expand your reach of what you think is now possible for you, it's going
yeah,
to take a minute, isn't it, to actually like override that thought that's been reinforced and has all of that dense emotion around it, around not being worthy, to then suddenly think, oh, I'm worthy, so therefore, hello, where's my car, where's my this, where's my that?
Absolutely. And it's that's why a lot of people kind of self-sabotage, and it's not really self-sabotage, it's that that thought form never left their aura.
Yeah.
And when you go in and you do energy clearing and you do energy work on it, you can remove those thought forms quite easily. And
Amazing.
they not like not only do they sit in the aura, but they also sit in our chakras, in specific that correlate to kind of different parts of our life.
Yeah.
So when you go in and you take away that energy, you take away that thought form, then if we think of the energy world as a blueprint to the physical world, so it comes before the physical. Please let me know if I'm not explaining this properly, by the
No,
way.
it's literally fascinating. This is like,
Yeah.
wow. So I was just going to ask actually about the does this include, look at me like you're the Wikipedia, I'm like a Google search. Does this include things like um fears, phobias and beliefs that are stored through your ancestral like heritage? Would you be able to clear those?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I would think of those. And again, we are so limited by the language we have when we talk
Yeah,
about this because
yeah,
we don't have the language.
yeah,
Um, but I would think of them as kind of like virus thoughts.
yeah,
So your mum has a virus thought, which then gets transferred into you. Like in my family lineage, it's intense worry over details.
yeah,
So I have to, and I have had to do a lot of work because I see the pattern play out. I see my nan, and then I see my mother, and then I can see it playing out in me. And I'm like, actually, this is just an energy and I can get rid of it. It's
yeah,
nothing more than an energy.
yeah,
Like I am not my emotions, like I am part of my soul, which has come down here to have a human experience. So therefore, that energy has no hold on me. Like I can just remove it. I can get rid of it. I can
yeah.
live my life without it. But it's
That's
having
amazing.
that awareness.
Yeah, that's it. And sometimes instead, what we do is we just, through conditioning, we just take that
Yeah.
on as part of our identity, and that
Ab-
becomes part of who we are.
yeah.
Oh, I love that. That's so interesting because obviously, so again, from like an epigenetics and a NLP perspective, these thoughts and phobias and beliefs are passed down through our DNA essentially to keep us safe. So it's
Yeah.
all from a very loving place of protection. But again, those fears and phobias don't relate to the real world experience where we are now. It's things like keeping us safe from tigers and, and being burned at stakes. And we don't have to worry about that, hopefully, these days. So it's great that through this work of energy clearing, we can actually, with love, pass those on back into the atmosphere so it no
Yeah.
longer holds us, which feels really empowering.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is just all about awareness. The biggest thing, like coming from my own personal journey, was anxiety. And the more, which is why it was so important for me to include like the real world examples of like my own business. Because as we employed more people, as our client billings went up, as I was responsible for the lives of other people, that built on me. Like that kept piling up and I was getting really anxious, really stressed. And it was only when I stopped viewing my spirituality as a hobby I did on the side to entertain me and started living it through the practices that I could overcome that. And it made it be like, okay, no, that anxiety is just an energy I can get rid of.
Yeah,
And then when I get rid of that energy, I can use my brain and my mental body to come up with the best solution. And also, then I can access intuition, whether it be through my higher soul or whether it be through gut instinct of the situation around me. And then I can use that to my advantage. But if you're stuck in your emotions, it's a hard thing to do.
yeah, that's it. We're always looking for that next intuitive, like next Uber, next like hit of inspiration that's going to be the one that takes our business forwards. But if you are so grounded in your body and just those dense, yucky emotions, you can't be available to receive any
Yeah.
anything, let alone then actually act on it. And that's one thing I was really excited to share, is that you've now used these principles in your own business and now do the same for others with clients. And it was quite interesting to me because obviously when we met, this was something you were doing almost under like cover of darkness, like
Yeah.
covertly behind the scenes, working on your clients' adverts, wasn't it? Your Facebook ads,
Yeah,
and obviously increasing the conversions. Can you speak to any of those results that you've kind of achieved through this work?
absolutely. So one thing that's really important is the energy. I think I touched on this before, but the energy always comes before. So you feel something before it happens. And like, so if you walk into a room and you said you feel the energy before you interact with the people, um you something may happen, and just before you get a text you might think like, oh, is this person okay? And then they text you. Like, you can feel things before they happen because the energy world is the precursor to the physical world. So those are, if that is our guideline,
Yeah.
then following that blueprint, also, if somebody is scrolling through Facebook, they're going to feel, or Instagram or TikTok, they're going to feel that content before they necessarily see that content. So, what I did with my clients and with myself is I would go in and I would cleanse any stress, any anxieties of the person who worked on that advert. So, say, and this can be done in both ways. So, if you're working on something, you're putting your energy into it. So whatever your emotional, and this is probably the biggest takeaway for people listening,
Mm.
whatever your emotion is whilst you're doing a particular job, I'd always try and be in a good energy state and like try and be high vibe. Don't fake it because that just comes across as it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
You can't lie to the energy world. It knows
Yeah,
everything.
energy doesn't lie. So try and really do those points of communication or doing client work when you're really in a good energy state. And I always say to like my team that it's like you're giving a gift to somebody. Like if we're handing over somebody's artwork, we're giving them a gift. And when you're in that kind of like, I'm so happy that I get to give you this, it completely changes your energy about how you do the job.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
So interesting as well that you said that, because intuitively, obviously, I don't know that much. I know a bit about, through my own spiritual practices and my own kind of observations. But when I work with clients, I always say about building a successful business is about essentially like you being obsessed with what it is that you're doing. You're delivering it in a way that really keeps you in your zone of genius and being able to approach it with your best energy. And I talk about this, but I don't, like you say, don't have the language to communicate. But it's like intuitively, I know, having done the Done For You service behind the scenes with my own client, that when you show up with better energy, your audience meets you with that energy. You're going to have better conversions. And I can absolutely testify to what you're saying, because when I ran like launches for clients, now we could have one launch at the beginning of the year where it was complete success. And when I speak to that person in their personal life, everything's great, they're super great, like everything's amazing. And then when
yeah,
we try and replicate the same launch, or if not even with tweaks later in the year, if things have happened, there's things weighing on them, other stuff going on, that launch will not convert in the same way. And there is an argument that, oh, perhaps you need a new strategy, but actually no, it is the energy of that person that has affected the outcome of that launch. So no, just kind of
absolutely.
confirmed it.
And like practical example as well, like before anything goes out of my agency, I've cleansed it and energized it. Like I don't do much of the marketing work anymore. I do more of my focus on the energetic side of it. And yeah, before anything leaves, it's cleansed from, because things go on in our lives. Like we can't stop life happening at all. But we can, at least what I try to do is be the master of my emotions, my mind, and my body. Know that they are my three tools that I can use to my advantage. Like my emotions aren't me. Like your thoughts, you think of your thoughts, therefore you want your thoughts. You can move your body, therefore, like if you are moving the body, then you want the body. But that can often get too like Buddhist mystical for people. So if we just stick to like, they are tools that you can use.
Yeah.
And then with that understanding, it removes you slightly from what we call the mud. And the mud are like the emotions, the stress, the anxiety. And when you kind of get above the mud, then you can look at things a lot more objectively. But obviously, like I live in the practical world, I have a team. I can't spend all my day like giving these like spiritual teachers, and also um like I have to run my business, I have to serve my clients. So whatever's going on in their life, we cleanse, we energize, and then the client then gets the best result.
Amazing. And it does show, doesn't it, in your conversions with your adverts?
Absolutely. What we always find is um, we do it in such a way where it's so client centric. So it's like, how is this going to make the person feel amazing? And we get those emotions in mind. And when we're working on that project, then it's all with the end emotions in mind, if that makes any sense. Just
Yeah.
completely simplify it.
Yeah, no, definitely. So if I was somebody that is perhaps working in my business right now and is about to go into launch or about to, deliver a new project or just what is ready for that next level of success, are there any practical steps or things that we should be avoiding to really put out our best energy to essentially then get the best result?
So you could obviously go to some kind of energy healer, or that's probably the easiest thing to do because you are stuck in your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own world. Getting that outside external help is probably one of the easiest ways to do that. Otherwise, if you think you've got to keep being your own teacher and it's hard to kind of like keep pulling yourself back every time you go. However, what I would say is there is a lot of power in being done.
Mm.
Um, there is a lot of power in saying it's not going to continue like this. I want something new. And then when you have that really firm boundary within yourself, things can happen really, really quickly. Um,
Love
so
that. Yeah, it's like the power of intention, isn't it? There is a book actually, The Power of Decision. And
mm,
I don't know if you've listened to that, but do you do any sort of personal development or is it all spiritual work for you?
I so for me, personal development and spiritual go hand in hand. Like as I said, the biggest thing for me is to integrate the spiritual into my life. So, for example, if I am procrastinating, then I know that my basic chakra isn't functioning properly. If my emotions are getting the better of me, I know that I need to do some more work on my ajna. Like these things,
Practice.
a daily practice. Yeah.
So what would you do to yourself? Like, is it just about the power of intention? Like, I'm intending to clear this and having that
Yeah.
awareness, or is it actual something physical that you need to
No,
do? I
it's
don't know.
it is energy clearing. So it's going in, checking my aura, scanning, seeing what's in there, removing things that aren't good, and then re-energizing it with what I want to be in there. And that is a service I offer if people are interested.
Yes.
Um,
And
it
do you
is,
know what is interesting to me is that this is typically the missing piece for a lot of people, a lot of women in business. Well, it ultimately will be, won't it? Because we're all affected by energy and we don't know what we don't know.
absolutely.
But I would say what I found, I went to LA this year actually. I keep saying last year. I feel like I'm done with 22. I'm already on 2023. But earlier this year, and what I found was that the women that were 7, 8, 9 figure business owners, for them,
Mm,
it is no longer about strategy. And I always
yeah,
say, look at the ones that are successful and see if there's any element there that you can model. And it's absolutely they're leaning in spiritual practices like this because they know that they've almost exhausted strategy. They're beyond that
yeah.
now. And equally with myself, I know that I can convert something much quicker. If I just put my intention behind it, if I'm just like,
Mm,
yes, I've had this intuitive hit, I've taken inspired action, this is the thing. So for me, I would never want to follow a linear approach to business growth strategy anyway. It's always got to be
mm,
tailored to the individual. But what I noticed with those women is like it's the spiritual aspect that they're like, yes, this is what's got me to that next level. Because it's the things that we can't speak to, the things that we can't say. Why I don't even know why that launch converted like hundreds of thousands of pounds when my last one did a tenner, you know? Like there's no logical explanation. It has to be energy, or
Absolutely.
something beyond our means. And do you ever listen to Kevin Hart?
No,
Oh my
no.
God, you're going to love him because he's obviously so funny in the way that he articulates it, but he's quite spiritual and he's always uses the approach, why not me? Like when you look at people that are uber successful, like next level, um, there's, you know, why can you not have that same success? And we'll have a list, like inevitably we'll have a list because it will make us feel good. But he's like, so do you think that they were born under a lucky star? Do you think that they were, you know, suddenly they had all of these resources that were available to them? A lot of these people actually have overcome adversity and everything else, but there'll be something behind the scenes almost that are just bringing planets into alignment and opportunities in their
Yeah,
way. But what you're saying is actually we all have access to that quantum field.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like there are external, one thing that shocked me the most is we don't know, or I think it would shock everybody if we realized how much our minds creates our reality. And that's said from like a place of awe and humbleness and like, wow. Because often, especially on the spiritual, people who are very spiritual, they can put things down to karma. They can put things down to things like psychic attacks is one you hear a lot. People are like, oh, this person's psychically attacking me. Um, and it's it is a lot rarer than people think. Like witch doctors and things and voodoo people, they exist. I'm not denying that. But it is on a substantially lower level than people think. But actually, how much our thoughts are impacted, and those thoughts, we can remove those. We can get rid of negative thought forms. And then actually we have huge control over what happens. And karma is obviously a factor, but people can often use karma as an excuse. And one of my favorite things is my teacher says that karma is futuristic, not fatalistic. So it's not that we blame bad things on karma, we plant our own good karma seeds every day.
Yeah.
And then in the future, we reap those rewards. So by paying our staff well, by by paying our staff well, by not gossiping about other people, all of these little things that we do every day, we're sowing the seeds for a more prosperous life in the future.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that 100%. Like divine law of compensation. Like
Absolutely.
whenever I speak to, you know, any interaction, it has to be positive. I want to be like filling the karmic cup as such, like for the collective. I'm all about the collective and how we can all make the world a better place, essentially, by
Yeah.
just being good citizens. And I actually say that a lot. Who is it? Is it Gandhi? That's like when somebody was like, "How do I make the world a better place?" And he was like, "Go home and love your family."
Yeah.
Gandhi. It's like I really believe in that. And whenever people are like, I want to find more clients, what do I do? And I'm almost like, go home and love your clients that you've already got, because
Mm,
that will help you. That will, you know, they will then go out and be your ambassadors. They'll be your cheerleaders. They, you know, they will inevitably like get incredible results that will speak for itself, sell for itself, and it will pay you dividends further down the road. So it's all about being
absolutely.
a good person now and doing what you can now, and it will pay you in one way or another, like in the future. I truly believe in that. Absolutely. Just, I mean, it's a good philosophy to have in life anyway, but even tangibly, like I've got
Yeah.
podcast episodes that I did for people years ago that people will come and find me on now. And I'm like, God, I don't even remember like recording that, or masterclasses or things. And I wasn't paid, but I was just like, I just want to show up, add value,
Mm.
and it will come back to me at some point, and it always does.
No, I'm totally with you there. And I always there's another quote and it goes, oh, it's like giving the universe stuff to work with. So, for example, like doing the podcast episode years ago and then people find you,
Yeah.
it could be something like a shift has happened within your energy. And your energy is in that podcast episode that you did 5 years ago, and all of a sudden that becomes visible. Whereas it wasn't visible before because of a shift in your energy field right now. Like time isn't linear.
Oh, wow.
which
Yeah.
is an incredible concept to get your head around and honestly blows my mind. But I see it time and time again. And
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, obviously, I'm a hypnotherapist and I've worked with clients where things come up in past lives. And I'm like,
yeah,
if that wasn't, you know, if that didn't kind of put a few things into
yeah,
place for me, before, like, that was obviously it, having clients that go through to past life regressions, and just all the things. That was something that was really fascinating to me when I learned that technique. And I
yeah,
think people are really, we're only like scratching the surface, really, aren't we, of what we're
absolutely.
capable of. In terms of how radically we can transform our lives, how limitless our potential truly is. And that feels really exciting. So I guess if somebody was now at a place where they feel like they are ready for more, or perhaps they're like, I just don't want to do this anymore, and they're ready for change. So they can obviously come over to your page, they can work with you. So you actually come in and work on their businesses, don't you? Clearing the energy
Yeah,
of not only them, but the teams.
yeah. So it depends how they want to work it. Um, absolutely. In doing a business, clearing the team is so, so important. Because again, if we go back to that 20 to 80,000 thoughts a day, thoughts have mass materializes when it gets denser. Your thoughts are so important. So going in and working with not just the business owner, but if there is a team involved, working on the team too. Um,
God, I
but
wish I'd had
also,
you years ago, actually. Sorry, super quick, but I had a barbershop and it was
yeah,
exactly what you're saying, in that I could be the biggest visionary. I could have the most amount of energy behind initiative in my
yeah,
business. But if my staff are not in alignment with it and they weren't behind it, it would never get off the ground. And the amount of times that I would, we were in the high street and I would go in, and for me, there's still so much potential. Like, I don't need to serve every client in the high street. I only need like a small percentage to be making pretty decent money. But for the people that were coming in and working for me, they were of the mindset that the high street said. They chose to listen to the news, read the newspaper, hear about the economy, whereas I completely shut off from all of that. I believe we create our own economy. So I
yeah,
would go in with anything as possible. Let's like hope for the best, all of these things. But they would come in with the mindset that nobody's buying, there's nobody in the high street, everybody's away. And ultimately, because they were in the business more than I was, that was the reality. It's mind blowing, isn't
absolutely.
it?
Absolutely. But also in that situation, I would inquire that a step further and say, like, okay, that's an external problem, but is this common
Yeah.
where I feel like I have to prop everything up
Yeah.
um, at the odds of other people? And then
Probably.
do you see what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's always taking things internally and
Yeah.
being because I'm a huge believer of the micro dictates the macro. So whatever is going on within me internally is going to see reflected in my career, but also I'm going to see that reflect and bear with me here because the first time I heard this, I didn't get it either. But I'm going to see that reflected in my view of the world. I'm going to see that reflected in what pops up to me on social media about what's happening all over the world. Um, it goes that way. Like if it wasn't in your energy system, if it wasn't in, maybe I'm going too off on a tangent here, but if it wasn't in your energy system, it wouldn't come to your
Yeah.
it wouldn't come into your reality. It would.
Oh, so even that
Yeah.
could have been more of an indication of me and my energy as opposed to
Abs
their energy.
yeah, absolutely.
That's so
Which is
interesting.
empowering.
Yeah.
It's so empowering because then you're like, this is within my control and I can change this.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of the time we take these situations as a negative. It's like, oh, okay, so the good, the bad, the ugly, that's all down to me. Great. Great. Well, I'm doomed. Especially
No,
when you've been in that mindset of like, some like a series of unfortunate events where you just feel stuck in that almost like victim. You're at the mercy of the
mhm.
universe, who just thinks it's highly hilarious to watch you suffer. Actually knowing
Yeah.
that at any moment you can take that back, clear that energy, and completely transform your life. How exciting.
I know because I've had a client like that on the energy side who was very like very much in the reality. And then it's become a case of like, okay, no, these people in your life that are causing you the problem, like what are the emotions? Let's start there. And that, because that situation is ultimately going to repeat itself again and again and again in some way or other until you
Yeah,
resolve
just
it
different
internally.
guises of the same thing, isn't it? It'll be a different situation, a different person, but it's essentially just, yeah,
Yeah,
replaying that same cycle.
yeah.
Mind blowing. This is so exciting. It's like literally immediately runs away and books an energy healing session with Rhian. It's so
No, and there is so much to it. So I hope I've done it justice because it's such a huge topic. Like I know you said at the beginning, you listed off a couple of things. And I was like, hmm. Uh, but no, there's so much, and even like the world of angels and the paranormal and all of the it's all explained by energy. And then when you understand energy, I like to think of it as like you make an energetic cup of tea. Like people, spiritual people often talk about it in this like mystical way that only they know. But then when you understand energy, you're just like, no, if I do A, B, C, D, I'm always going to get result F. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And it then becomes more of a science and it becomes just as real as the physical world. And here we're only talking about like the mental and business implications, the huge like the physical healing side of energy work is incredible.
Mhm.
Like I was doing a client the other day, felt they had a broken ankle or like broken ankle slash foot area. And I was like, okay, this is a bit weird. So in the session, I was cleansing his ankle. He hadn't told me any of this, by the way. And at the end of the session, I was like, just at my own personal curiosity, like, how is your ankle? And he was like, oh, I broke it 4 months ago. Um,
Yeah.
and then he sent me a message 4 days later and said, you've blown my mind before, Rhian, but I've been unable to repair the last bit of my ankle. Like he's a runner. So he didn't have the flexibility in his foot. And he was like, now I have 100% flexibility back of my foot. And he was like, my brain cannot compute this. And I was like, don't even try.
Yes,
We're
don't,
just
yes.
human.
Yes,
Like,
don't try and make logic of something that cannot
yeah,
be explained. Oh my God, that is mind blowing. Like, God, I'm going to have a shopping list when I come to you of things. I'm like, this one time at bank camp when I broke my hand, when I did the thing. Oh my God, this is just crazy, isn't it? But that's the thing. And I think you need to approach life with that energy that anything is possible.
yeah.
And you can absolutely call in these miracles every single day. Um, oh, that just, yeah, so amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that with the ladies, because I think that's going to open their minds up to so many different possibilities that, again, we love to make ourselves the center of all things in the sense that if things are going wrong, it's always me. Like, there's something wrong with me, da 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 da. But actually, it's reversing it, isn't it? And saying that if you can kind of clear all of this internally, anything is possible, literally. So this means that I could perhaps manifest Zac Efron to come in as my new husband.
Potentially. Never say
Yeah,
never.
you never, you just don't know, do you? I'm putting that thought out there with intention. He could be sitting there right now thinking, female, I might need a female business coach. Like, let me see if I can
Honestly,
find
I
one.
have so much to say on love. So
Oh my God, that's definitely an episode for another day. We'll have to put that in the show notes. Like we can vote on this and see if you want to come back and talk about relationships, because that's also something that again typically is can affect our business relationships as well. It can
absolutely.
translate all areas. So oh my God, how exciting. Well, thank you so much, Rhian. I really, really appreciate that. That's been really mind blowing, even for me, somebody who is already kind of bought into the spiritual principles. It's definitely added a whole nother layer to that as well. So thank you so much. I will make sure that in all of your details are in the show notes. Anybody can come and find you. But genuinely, um, this is the missing piece for most businesses. It's that next level of clearing and um, you know, practices that you might need to add into your business today if you're ready for that next level of success. So thank you so much. It's been so amazing. And ladies, obviously, if you've enjoyed this episode, head over to Rhian's page, go and find her, and make sure you let us know what your biggest takeaways are.